Humans are ultimately drawn to companionship. Most of us crave some kind of affection, even if it's just from one person who will fill us with wonderful feelings of calm, love, and most importantly, they make us feel like we aren't alone. Well, today we're going to tackle a film which takes that idea to its literal extreme. We're here to review the film Together. I am your host Sarah, but before we begin, please give us a like, share and subscribe to the channel as we do weekly reviews and breakdowns for all the new films that are coming out, as well as loads of other film related content for you to enjoy. So let's explore this film together. I just want to say though that before we dive in, we're going to be combining our usual review video with our breakdown video for this one. But don't worry, I'll let you know when we have spoilers in. So what did I think of this film? Well, the film is certainly a major tribute to the classic body horror in how it portrays a togethering that happens throughout the film. Big props to the director for using mostly practical effects to really give that disturbing look and vibe. I know that there's a lot of buzz around this movie, and not all of it is good, especially the lawsuit about how they might have stolen this idea for this film from another creator. But to be completely honest, every single film feels like it's stealing something from another film. And even this one, merging and becoming one person, isn't all that different from films like The Thing, Society and Annihilation. But overall, it's a solid flick. Just a bit too much relationship melodrama in it, especially at the beginning, which feels forced and out of place, but in the end, it does end up working out. Now, it's spoiler time. Skip ahead to the timestamp on the screen if you want to remain unspoiled. Anyway, the film begins with some people looking for their lost little pups who've gone out adventuring into the woods and find some kind of weird pool of water deep in this cavern. That looks like some kind of alien plant life is growing out of it. Now, after drinking from the water, the dogs begin behaving strangely, as if they are somehow curiously drawn to one another. And I don't mean like just wanting to be friends, but more like what happens to the poor doggos in the movie The Thing. Later that night, at the kennel, there are strange howling noises, warped and almost painful whining. When the owner goes to investigate, what he sees is more disturbing than anything. The dogs have somehow merged together. Again, just like the ones in The Thing. This immediately sets the tone of the film and debuts some pretty nifty practical effects. We are then introduced to the main couple of the film, played by a real-life couple, Dave Franco and Alison Brie. As they interact with their friends at some party, we learn that they've been together for a while now, but that they've been drifting apart. Not to mention, his band is about to go on tour, driving a wedge even further between them, even though that they are about to move in together. At the end of the night, she proposes to him, and at first he thinks she's joking, making the entire thing super awkward, but he saves it last minute by saying yes. After a bunch of scenes of some emo relationship melodrama, we get a strange nightmare moment which gives us a little bit of insight into Tim's state of mind. He feels like he's a failure and that he's disappointing his parents, who have apparently passed away. While moving into their new house and exploring the property, a disgusting smell leads to Tim to find a group of dead rats, who have somehow fused together. As the day rolls along and they begin to settle into their new neighbourhood, it all seems quaint with a small town charm. But there's still a tension between the couple as they navigate where their lives are taking them. She's ready to settle down, even being hired as a school teacher where he dreams big of being a rock star and that all it brings with it. One day, lost on a hike in a rainstorm, they stumble across this strange pond, marked by an old bell. Well, more like fall into it as the ground gives way underneath Tim's feet, and when Millie tries to rescue him, he takes her down with him. Cold and wet, Tim finds some old wooden furniture in the hole and attempts to build a fire. Millie remarks how she's super thirsty, and so, guess what happens? Quoting Man vs. Wild, Tim is the first to drink from the strange pond, and fills his water bottle. He then shares it with Millie, too late to turn back now. While sharing a joint, Tim shares a really disturbing story about the first time he found a dead rat as a kid, and how later on his father had died in his sleep and his mother just left the dad there, and each night she sat beside him smiling like crazy. Until he walked in and saw it for himself, and then I guess she ended it. Fuck, that is rough. Night falls and they've fallen asleep when a strange feeling and noise wakes Tim up, and it's like he's tripping on mushrooms because the walls are moving and breathing with him, and he feels this strange sensation to get closer and touch Millie. He looks at her and she's hyperventilating, and then suddenly she grabs his face. He wakes up though. It was just another nightmare. It's now the next morning and their legs have kind of fused together, like someone put super glue and stuck them together. It's painful, but they pull themselves apart, no real damage it seems. Since the rain has stopped though, they use this opportunity to climb out and head back home. When they get home, she asks for a massage, and her flesh seems to really set him off. Like he craves it, wanting to rip it off her skeleton. It's almost euphoric for him, but it begins to hurt her, and she snaps him out of it. She says she's going to head into town, and he goes to take a shower. As she drives off though, his body involuntarily slams into the shower wall, as if it's being pulled magnetically by her. Every turn she takes slams him into a different side of the shower. What is going on? At one point the force is so strong it cracks the bathroom tile until the splinter stabs him in the forehead, and he once again snaps out of it. He goes to see a doctor to see what's going on with him lately. The doctor suggests it's anxiety and depression, and that he may need therapy. He also learns that a local couple went missing around the same area, and so it turns out that those people at the beginning weren't just searching for the dogs, but for that same romantic pair. After a really awkward dinner with a fellow teacher who also lives in the neighbourhood, Mr. McCabe, they learn that there used to be a small church in the woods, with their own cult of followers, before it sank to the ground and the flock kind of just scattered about. Mr. McCabe also seems to have a thing for Millie, and this causes a kind of weird sex play between them that goes horribly wrong when he bites her during their makeout. It gets even stranger later that night though, where Millie wakes up because she feels her hair being pulled, and she turns to look at Tim, who is like sucking it down his throat, wide-eyed like some creepy vacuum cleaner thing, or the suck cut from Wayne's World. Whatever's going on though, Tim does not want to deal with it. He's got too much on his mind, and so while Millie wants to talk it out, he ushers her to take him to the train station to hook up with his band, and she tells him to stay the city over the night. Maybe some time with the boys will do him some good. After dropping him off, she drives away, and he begins to have a full-on panic attack, as if his heart was being torn from his body. The train arrives and then departs, and Tim never gets on. Instead, he walks back to town towards the school, looking like a crack addict pulling and clawing at his own skin. Millie, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be having the same effects. Instead, she's video chatting with one of her friends from back home, spilling out all the relationship details, and when her friend suggests that they aren't meant to be together, Millie instantly changes her tone to talk all about the good things. Then, looking out the window, she suddenly spots Tim. He looks super messed up. So she takes him to the bathroom to see what's going on, and he just tells her he needs her. And of course, the two have sex in one of the stalls, at the school during school hours, where the students are there, mind you. When they finish, however, he seems to be stuck inside her. He can't pull out. The two are almost then caught by a young student, so she cups her boyfriend's mouth and pushes him back out forcefully. I thought Galactus stretching Reed Richards was painful, but damn, enter Mr. McCabe. Oh shit, with some blood running down her leg though, Millie steps out the stall and makes it seem like she's experiencing PMS. And while Mr. McCabe gives her the benefit of the doubt, but he's definitely not convinced. And then he sees the extra pair of feet poking out from under the stool. And well, he knows. Later that day, embarrassed, Millie heads over to McCabe's and apologises. He pretends he didn't see anything though and says, "Womanhood. It's nothing to be ashamed of." Millie begins crying, and so McCabe uses this opportunity to play the shoulder to cry on and invites her in. She accepts and she breaks down, bearing her soul that her relationship is imploding. She says she loves him, but they've been together for so long, she thinks she's just grown complacent. McCabe tries to dazzle her with some Plato and surprisingly gives her some good advice to try and work things out with Tim. Even though his face tells a different story, as if he knows the harder they try, the more it will tear them apart. Which is exactly where his next story comes into play. Talking about his former relationship where he didn't know who he really was and he felt liberated when he finally decided to leave. He's about to show her a tape of his wedding when out of the corner of the window, Millie spots Tim, creepily staring into the house. She excuses herself, leaves and grabs Tim's hand, and now suddenly she feels that same euphoria, just from a simple touch. Oh dear, seems like she's been infected as well. Later that night, Tim does some research on the missing couple, checking for their social media and using reverse image search to pinpoint their last known location. He then spots that same strange bell in one of the pictures they took, and before he can fully realise the connection, Millie's face slams into the glass door behind him, bloodying her nose, and she is just like a magnet, she's inexplicably drawn towards him. She begins vibrating hard against the glass, lifting her off her feet, and the glass begins to crack. Tim opens the door quickly and she just flies at him like she's trying to become him, having some kind of fucked up seizure. He slaps her, which knocks her out of it, and she just has no memory of what has just happened. Time to sit down and figure this shit out. He puts out all the clues and she tries her best to play devil's advocate, and she thinks this is because he's trying to pull away from her. But the moment she started walking away, she couldn't. He tells her he knows what she feels, that she can't walk away because he doesn't want to walk away. That on some level they are connected mentally and physically. Somehow though, the stuff McCabe spoke to her about triggers something in her, and she tells him she doesn't want him at all anymore. And it's like releasing her from the control, and she walks away. The two then head to separate bedrooms and say goodnight in the coldest way, and turn off the lights. Moments later though, Tim feels himself being dragged along the floor, and this wakes him up, only to find some invisible force pulling him towards Millie's bedroom door. The more he tries to fight it, his body reacts violently, and he grabs hold on the bathroom door along the way. But then Millie's door begins to violently shake and opens up, and Millie's bending backwards in some horrific crab walk begins sliding towards him. This is like David Cronenberg's worst nightmare. Limbs twist, muscles control, and they just try to fight it. But then boom, their hands touch and they begin to merge together, like two pieces of clay being smashed together. Tim tells her to grab the muscle relaxers from the drawer, and she grabs them, and the two start stuffing several of them down their throats, even crushing some of them and snorting them as fast as they can. Tim covers his feet with the bottom of his pants and puts them against her feet and tries to push them apart. But then the pills kick in and the two just pass out. The next morning he wakes up at the kitchen table and he's been duct taped to the chair. She's lost her damn mind. She pours whiskey down his throat and has an electric saw at the ready to cut their arms apart. For the squeamish of you out there, shit's about to get real. She apologises for not believing him before and then proceeds to separate themselves. We then cut to them sitting on the floor at opposite ends of the kitchen, bandaged up, taking the rest of the pills and munching on some snacks. So what's the plan now? Get to the hospital before some even crazier shit happens? But, oh no, Millie's left her keys at McCabe's, so the two have to split up. Distance is good in this case, and she heads to the bit too friendly co-worker's house, while Tim promises he will sit still at home. But Tim has other plans and grabs his climbing gear and heads to the cave. Over at McCabe's, we finally get a full view of his porch. And guess what's hanging next to the door? One of those strange bowls. Was he part of this cult? Did he absorb his former lover? Ooh, shit's about to get real. She enters the house and the wedding video is playing, and it just happened to take place at that church before it sank. Cut back to Tim, who's now in the cave and with a flashlight can finally see why the walls were moving. There are people in them. On the ceiling of the cave is a giant mural of some Lovecraftian deity painted on it with several limbs and heads. We then jump back to Millie, who is watching the tape, and a strange ritual is taking place, where this marital bond seems to be way more than just a few vows and kisses, but instead a deep intertwining of their body, mind and soul. McCabe pops out the shadows filled with bad vibes and tells her what she's about to experience is a glorious transformation and ultimate intimacy in becoming divine flesh. Tim, still in the hole, slips and starts to get absorbed by the floor, when a conjoined form of the missing hikers crawls out from under some debris, reaching out towards him, speaking in multiple voices, begging for help. He spots a knife and grabs it, slicing off the mutated creature's fingers and manages to break free, running back to his rope and escaping the hole. Millie, on the other hand, witnesses McCabe morphing his face into several different people, still preaching on about his divine purpose, and then slices her arm. She falls back but scrambles to her feet and runs from the building. As the two approach their home, they see one another and the togetherness process begins to kick in again, immediately trying to pull them into one another. He tells her he knows what to do though, and to let go, and begins to walk towards her. She freaks out, of course, her body bending, but she trusts him and rises to her feet. He reaches behind him and the knife is tucked into his pants, and he gets down on one knee and proposes to her. For a moment, this relaxes their bodies, as if admitting they needed each other was the key all along. But psych. He pulls the knife out next, prepared to end his own life. But she tells him to stop. He doesn't need to, and reveals the cut down her wrist, and that she's already bleeding out. He runs to her just as she collapses, and his arms wrapped around her, curiously not merging with her though. As he wails for her to stay with him, she begins to fade out. Well, he can't let her die, not when he finally realised he truly does love her. And so he grabs her wound and wills himself to join with her, essentially plugging it up. The two then head into the house and put on some Spice Girls and have their very first dance together. The two then exchange I love yous, get naked, and the song Two Become One plays as they literally become one. A day or several days later, and Millie's parents arrive to have dinner with the couple. As they approach the door, a familiar bell is hanging by it, and they ring it. And who answers the door? A newly merged Timely. The end. Now that is what I call a body horror experience. The film began a bit rough. I feel like the relationship drama was a bit unnecessary. They could have just downplayed it a bit, or I don't really know, but it did tie into the plot eventually, so I guess it needed to be there maybe? Regardless, the practical effects were very well done, and while the film wasn't really spooky in that traditional horror way, it was certainly messed up and really gave off Tragic the Fly vibes. I'm going to give this film a 7 out of 10. Even though it was only an hour and a half long, it felt like there could have been more moments cut from it to pick up the pacing a little better. Clearly, being a couple in real life, Franco and Brie have a wonderful chemistry with one another and really play off each other very well. And the ending leaves room for them to turn this into a franchise if they really wanted to, although I think it works best as a standalone offering. But what do you think? Do you wish you could become one with another person? Let us know in the comments below. I know I certainly wouldn't, but I would love to hear from you. I want to thank you all for checking out the video. Make sure to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to ring that bell. Stay up to date with our latest releases. I've been your host, Sarah, and I appreciate you all being here. Have an amazing day, and take care, and goodbye.